regards to the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. Now, this is a mega exclusive that we are receiving, wherein New Delhi is to go harsh on the Indo-Canada diplomatic relations. What we are learning from top government sources is that government wants to take harsh steps after visa cancellations. Now, New Delhi wants Canada to recall more than 24 diplomats from the mission in New Delhi. Sources have also said that final decision is not taken yet, but this is going on from almost 2 weeks. This is ongoing for almost 2 weeks now, and New Delhi sees this as a downgrade of the diplomatic relationships and after visa cancellation. Now, Delhi sees no high strength requirement and Canada can't be given free hand. Their non-cooperation in terror investigation is one of the biggest reasons for these steps to be taken. Now, their top officials come and meet and promise, but no delivery has so far been seen from their side. This is the input that we are receiving, and right now we have CNN News 18's Anand Narsimhan joining me on the broadcast to bring us more details on this. Anand, a very good morning to you. Well, these are the latest inputs that we are getting. The harsh steps being taken by the government, being planned by the government for this particular diplomatic standoff that is underway. What more can we learn from these?
Well, morning, Shreya, and morning to our viewers. This is confirmation of what Arindam Bagchi the other day, the MEA spokesperson, had said, that there will be a further downgrade, or we would request parity of staff. So generally, a lot of the Western nations have huge number of staff, which is not even commensurate with the kind of equations that India has on their soil. But largely it is done due to facilitating visa processing, etc. That generally, but on that day, we did have the MEA spokesperson say that further going forward, we would, after the cancellation of visa services, which Dr. Jaishankar also justified in New York, where he said that given the kind of threats and security challenges that our diplomats are facing, it is difficult for us to function in such a case, and that's why we've had to temporarily cancel visa services until further notice. But on that day, India had very clearly said that we are going to request, after asking Olivia, the person who was leading the Canadian intelligence on Indian soil as part of the Canadian embassy, after asking him to leave, and he left in 4 days. The next call that was taken was that there will be a shortening of or reduction in the size of the diplomatic strength, and that's what Canada will ask to say, that there will be like to like. So the number of diplomats that India has in the embassy in Canada, in Ottawa, will be the same size that will be now allowed for Canada in India. So after this, very clearly, some serious steps have been taken. And that's the reason why this is happening. Now, sources are also saying that we see this as a serious downgrade, and we are not going to take this lightly at all going forward. And this is not just the MEA, this is top government sources confirming to CNN News 18 that the diplomatic strength overall is going to be reduced, and Canadian diplomats are going to be asked to leave Indian soil very soon, and that number will be with parity with the diplomatic strength that India has. And these are things which are now being confirmed to CNN News 18, our group editor security, confirming these details.
Right. And also, if we are to look at, circle back to the entire point of how New Delhi sees this as a downgrading of the diplomatic relationships, is it safe to probably then say that this is probably the first step towards deteriorate? Of course, the relationships had already been deteriorating, but this comes in as a very firm step from India, reiterating its position within this particular story and with whatever has been going on in developing here.
Yes, it is. And Bharat is very, very clear. Bharat is clear that unless Canadian embassies and officials walk the talk, because they keep giving a lot of assurances, but nothing has been done. Multiple letter rogatories, extradition requests have all been submitted. The Canadian authorities have all the data. The RCMP and their own intelligence outfits have flagged off this extremist elements and gangsters having a free run and free play on Canadian soil, but no action has been taken. There is open political patronage that's being given. We had Mr. Dhaliwal speak with us at CNN News 18, again assure that if there is credible evidence given, but all the letter rogatories and credible evidences have been provided. But nothing has been forthcoming from the Canadian authorities. On the other hand, they, on the basis of mere credible allegations, have decided to drive a wedge in equations. Bharat for long has been playing the diplomatic niceties and maintaining the diplomatic niceties and not, crossing the line in terms of a diplomatic offensive is concerned, despite the frustrations, despite Canada's open patronage, and it was all writ large. The fact that Hardeep Nijjar was being coveted and was being met with by top officials within the Canadian government and authorities, despite a red corner notice against him since November 2014, and that he had been proscribed a terrorist by the Indian authorities in 2020. Despite that, them still coveting him showed the fact that the Canadian authorities thought that they could get away with this kind of behavior. Now, with Justin Trudeau's statement on the Canadian floor or the Canadian House, the Canadian Parliament, India has now enough and more reasons saying it is Canada that's dropped the diplomatic niceties, then we are going to expose Canada to the world for what it is. And if Canada wants to be known as a terror haven, because nations like Sri Lanka, nations like Bangladesh have all joined in on the chorus.
Right, Anand. Anand, also one more thing is, like you just mentioned about Prime Minister Trudeau having mentioned this in the House. We remember that the first action taken by the Canadian government was to send back one of our top diplomats, and now it has now come down to this, wherein our New Delhi wants Canada to recall more than 24 diplomats. Where does this exactly put Prime Minister Trudeau now in this entire scenario?
Well, it is now for the Canadian authorities to respond. The Liberals are all getting a lot of flack, coughing a lot of flack for the kind of behavior that's been shown by the Trudeau administration, with increasing number of its, not just its own members, but also its allies being exposed time and again for not just committing fraud, being under investigation for fraudulent activities, for also using this entire immigration business to push their nefarious agenda and allowing gangsters a free passage. How is it that Canadian intelligence authorities were coveting and meeting a person who was a person of interest, who had a red corner notice against him, and his own son confirms to the Canadian media, Canadian national media, that they were indeed in touch with the Canadian authorities and the Canadian intelligence authorities? That means the Canadian intelligence authorities knew very well that Hardeep Nijjar was operating on Canadian soil despite a red corner notice against him, despite extradition requests, despite India proscribing him a terrorist, and despite multiple letter rogatories and dossiers that had been submitted and demarches that had been given. So this is just a brazen proof. Now they are standing up for a Canadian citizen. Now Canada has to choose what kind of Canadian citizens do they want to stand up for. Did they stand up against America when an American citizen was threatening Canadian nationals and threatening them to leave Canada? Gurpatwant Panun is an American citizen. Where was Justin Trudeau's voice? Why did he not stand up for the Canadian citizens, and why didn't he ask Gurpatwant Panun to immediately leave Canada and bar him from entering Canada because he was an American citizen threatening Canadian citizens? So this partisan approach and this kind of mollycoddling, these kind of extremist elements, it's writ large, and Canada has to now walk the talk if it really, really wants to make amends. And India is now going to go on all forums and expose Canada for who they are and what they are doing.
Right, Anand. Anand, thank you for bringing us all those details.